Good evening YouTube, and welcome back to the channel and the Ducati 748 SP project. So firstly, I've got to apologise. I really wanted to start this at the beginning of the year. I can't even remember what was discussed in the last video, where we left it. I sort of put it back together. The plan was to build a new workshop. For those that have seen with COVID, prices for building anything at the moment are just through the roof with supply shortages. So I don't want to take it apart completely and do a full strip down at the moment, purely because I know it's going to be in bits for months, if not a year. And stuff starts going missing if you're not on top of the project all the time, especially as I've got the other bikes in here as well that I'm tinkering with. So in today's video, it's just sort of to bring you guys up to speed with what's happening with the bike. So we were supposed to be going out, my good friend Aaron, he's got the Honda RC30 that we were supposed to go out and do like a 750 classic day with, but he didn't get around to getting his sorted. I didn't really get this finished, so it's just sort of sat here semi put back together from when I did the last video. So what's the plan for this winter? Well, as I said, I don't want to do the full strip down, but I do want it ready for March next year for when we go and do the RC30 review, because his stance on it was, well, I'm giving you a classic bike, you need to bring one out too. So that has got to be on the road for that. So I figured, you know what, I know I need to do a few bits, which is what we're going to discuss today. It is going to need another MOT. So hopefully we can do the belts, do the coolant change, give the brakes a service. It needs a damn good clean because it has just been sat here and the dust is settling, unfortunately, from this roof on it. So it needs a good snow foam as well. And little things like regenning the battery, just to make sure everything actually works when we put it back together. So yeah, hopefully on this video, a bit of an insight into the project, a little bit more detail of what's actually going to be happening for the next couple of months. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. So hopefully you enjoy the content. So the first job was just getting the battery into some sort of regeneration mode. I've got a C-Tech charger. It's actually really good if you do leave your batteries for a couple of months, just to sort of try and regenerate them. All so far seems to be coming back clear, but I'll leave it for the evening just to give that a boost charge. As I mentioned in the intro, she is a little bit dusty, so I don't want to touch any of that and mark any of the paint. So what I'll do is actually get the snow foam out on it, give it a good blast over. But I have drained the tank last weekend. The fuel's been in there for a couple of years now. I think it's about 2 or 3 years since it's last been out on the road, probably nearer 3. So a fresh can of V-Power to go in. Now in the last video, I mentioned that obviously that rear spring needs either replacing or stripping back and repainting. But as you can see, the exhaust system's gone back together. Looks a million times better than it did before when it was full of corrosion. But again, things like this still all need to be addressed, but that can be something for next year. So as I mentioned, the main goal is to strip the fairing down, get the bodywork off, get the brakes apart as well, because they're just going to need a bit of TLC. I semi took them apart last year. Things like brake fluid as well. See, I've got a little friend there that's hidden the bike over the summer, and just generally give it a good clean up and get it ready to go out. But overall, do you know what, it still looks fantastic really, even though it has got, say, bits like this that are going to need addressing. If anyone's got any tips, I still haven't found a proper solution for that. But like I say, let's just get it back on the road and you join me to its MOT hopefully next weekend. So as you can see there from the left hand side, obviously that Öhlins damper's going to need a good service. And you can also see down where the chain is, I've got quite a lot of crud in there. So when I take the belly fairings off and give it a good wash, I'll give that a good clean out as well, just so I say it's in good order for next year. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the previous video, but it looks like the previous owner had actually run a higher gear, and he did do a little bit of touring on the bike. Not that I would say that's particularly comfortable for that riding, but fair play to the chap who went all across Europe. So I need to get the correct gearing. It looks like it's been geared down on the rear sprocket, or the sprocket size has gone down, which would give it a higher top speed and cruising speed. I think it's got a 36 or a 37 on it, where it should be well, some recommend running a 40 on the rear. So hopefully make a big difference to the acceleration. I don't do any touring on it or top speed runs really nowadays. So be good to gain some acceleration out of it. But like I say, get the belly fairings off and start stripping it down. So with the fairings removed, you can see the radiators are still in pretty good nick really. I'm not sure if they're the originals on the bike, but I don't believe the previous owner ever replaced them. An interesting fact for the SP and the R models is you also get an additional oil cooler. This has actually got a blanking plate on the normal Biposta models. So pretty cool, runs a little bit more power, so obviously a little bit more cooling. The previous owner also did the regulator rectifier plate update, which is supposed to improve cooling, but the plug on mine had completely melted. So mine is soldered and heat shrink, so it isn't unpluggable at the moment, but that will be something I need to address. But the plug, I'll try and overlay a picture, was in such a bad way when I picked it up. I'm surprised I didn't have a fire, but looks like I've got a bit of a leak coming from one over the rocker cover inspection plates there, so that'll be something we'll have a look at as well, just to make sure it's all in good order when we're out on the road next year. So with the battery tray now moved to one side, which I will have to properly remove at some stage so I can actually get to all the loom, we'll have a quick look at the cam belts and see how this looks. This is obviously the big one for this generation of Ducati and a lot of the newer ones. If the belts fail, just game over really. Good luck finding an SP engine now, especially as they're forged. So let's have a quick look, take the cover off and see what these belts look like. So as you can see, the belts are actually in still really good nick. I mean, you can never really judge that of a cam belt because they do go brittle. Obviously, this has been sat tensioned in that position now for a couple of years. So be replacing them because, like I say, the cost of the engine versus the cost of a set of belts would just not be worth it. So we'll check all the bearings, make sure they're all okay. I think I've done about 300 miles since the last cam belt change. And when I checked the bearings at that point, they were absolutely spot on. So yeah, rest now to strip down obviously the top cylinder and move all this loom out of the way. So the battery's been on charge all night, unfortunately. Should be 12 volts really. The charger has picked up an issue with it as well, unfortunately, stating that the battery is not holding the correct charge. So to be expected. It's God knows how old now. It was on the bike when I bought it and it'd been laid up, and it doesn't even look like a decent brand one, but a monster of a battery for a V-twin. So I'm going to need to get a replacement ordered as well this week. So the right hand side has all cleaned up really nicely. Amazed at how well those fittings still look, considering they're still original. I assume the oil that had leaked from the inspection cap up there had kept everything preserved. The problem, start to see the rust on that we were looking at last time, actually occurs around this side. So I've just removed the chain sort of guide. See the crud that's all left behind it. So that's going to be tonight's job, is just to clean that up. But I'm going to need to order a new one of these, and that's where you can see how bad sort of the corrosion is on the cases that are obviously going to all need to be stripped down at some stage. So yeah, certainly plenty to do for the full overhaul at some stage. So you can see there is years of old chain grease build up there. It's disgusting. So two 8mm bolts just holding the side stand on. You can also see just the crud has got everywhere where I've never deep cleaned it before, and neither has the previous owner. So the new chain guide has arrived, and as you can see, considerably better than the old one. So I've just got to push out these like brass washers, and they'll just go into there, which I've already removed one here, which you can see, and they just sit in the, and then we'll be good to go. So that'll look a lot better. And obviously, as this one's all fallen apart and gone brittle, it's just fit for the bin now. So with the belt covers removed, you can now see all the cam belts in their glory. So I've essentially put the bike in 6th gear, spun the wheel around until I line up the crank, and you can see the pulleys there. We're looking for this dot, this line, and then up here, this line, this dot, and again, that line on that dot. Now you can also go around the other side of the bike and through the sight glass on the left, if it's all timed correctly, you can see there our little marker is in line. So we're all perfectly ready to go now. I spoke to someone many years ago when I first did this, and as mentioned about a locking tool, because you can get a locking tool that pins them. And he said, to be honest with you, the front cylinder will move. I think it's the front cylinder that pulls slightly out, which you can just twist back. And then the vertical one stays in place. So I'm going to do the same process again. Obviously, if you are doing your timing and you're unsure, it's probably worth buying the locking tools. I don't think they're a lot of money, but as I didn't the last time and everything is still in line, I'm just going to go ahead and do the same method again. So with the old belts removed, I've just put back on the tensioners, and you've got the idlers in the well. And the reason for this is while it's all apart, and just have a good feel, make sure nothing's sort of rumbling, because if there is any problem with these pulleys and they fail, it will cause cam belt failure. So it's worth just checking everything while it's apart. Next step, I'll just clean all, like you can see, all the old drive belt dust in there previously. Clean all that up, and so you'll now be able to see, if I do it on this exhaust pulley, that it will now move freely. And this is where you've got to be careful with getting that timing point exactly right. But so what we'll do now, clean that up, put the new belts back on, put the tensioner back on, but not tension the belts yet, and just spin it over and make sure obviously that everything's rotating freely, and take all the slack out of the belt. So unfortunately, not a great end to the video. I bought a set of cam belts, Dayco, good brand, recommended online as well. I've used them with the Renault stuff. Well, they make the pulleys for the Renault stuff in the past that I've used. And unfortunately, they are a 93 tooth belt, whereas the originals are 95. So I've cleaned everything up, tried to put it on, it's just not fitting. And I've got to that point where I was like, well, how has this happened? Has the supplier sent me the wrong belts? Unfortunately, it turns out that there is a later cylinder head on the 748. I think it said it was 2002 that actually required the 93 tooth belt. So I now have to either leave these in the garage indefinitely or try and return them. But it was a couple of months ago that I bought them. So I think the best solution moving forward is just going to be to buy a set of genuine cam belts. So hopefully next video, the bike will be getting fired up, all back together. And like I say, thanks for watching. Until next time.